They told you a family moved into a haunted house. That was the first deception. This house was never haunted. It was honest. What you were shown as a demon stalking the Perron family was actually a mechanism, an inheritance, passed silently from woman to woman, in a house that never stopped repeating its first crime. And the most disturbing part? The exorcism didn't end the curse. It only interrupted it, mid-cycle, for the first time in 108 years. We'll get to that. Here is what The Conjuring was actually built to make you ignore. This is the version they sold you. A family, a new home, a predatory entity, ancient and biological in its hunger, that arrived from nowhere to torment them. Comforting, isn't it? Evil as an intruder, something that came from outside. It lets you believe the danger was external, a conspiracy of the supernatural, not a protocol of the ordinary. But look again at what the directors actually filmed. Not what they told you it meant, what they showed you. Watch Roger Perron carry the family's boxes past the dog at the threshold. He never looks down. He never asks why she won't cross. The camera lets him stay innocent, because the camera has already decided who gets to be a witness in this story, and who doesn't. A dog who reads the danger correctly, and is removed from the story within seconds. A cellar, boarded shut, that the children find before any adult does. Notice that. Not Roger, not Carolyn. The 5 girls find the warning first, every single time. And every single time, an adult arrives to explain it away. This was never a story about a demon entering a home. This was the chilling reality of a house that already had a system in place, and was simply waiting for the next family to walk into it. Imagine a house that doesn't need to hunt. It only needs to wait. That's the existential threat the marketing never mentioned. Here is the evidence hiding in plain sight. This shot, Bathsheba's hanging, is filmed from her perspective. The only first-person view given to anyone the film calls a monster. Lorraine doesn't just witness this vision. She absorbs it, hand pressed to her temple, body recoiling, because some part of her already understands what the camera is confessing. Same tree, same land, 1863, 1971. The directors never sold this property to a new family. They just let the cycle continue under a new name. There's a property deed in this story that nobody talks about. Sherman, crossed out. Perron, written beneath it in different ink. The land was never cleared of what happened on it. It was simply relabeled. Now watch the blindfold game. A child, blindfolded, led by a trusted voice towards something unseen. Cindy laughs. Her sisters clap in a circle around her, golden afternoon light pouring through the curtains. The film frames it as an innocent game interrupted by evil. It is not interrupted. It is the mechanism, in miniature. Vulnerability, blindness, a familiar voice guiding you exactly where harm is waiting. Watch her foot land inches from the cellar door. Nobody stops the game. Nobody ever does. And here is the detail the official narrative asked you to overlook entirely. Every single bruise on Carolyn's body appears when Roger is gone. Every time, without exception. Watch the pattern stack. One bruise healing as another forms, always in his absence, always erased the moment his truck reappears in the driveway. The film calls this demonic targeting. The pattern calls it something far more predatory, and far more ancient than any demon. A volatile cycle of harm that only surfaces in isolation, and disappears the moment anyone is watching. Imagine living inside a house that has been rehearsing this exact cruelty since before your grandmother was born. An old photograph on the farmhouse wall proves it. A woman from an earlier generation, standing in front of the same door, dust gathering over a face nobody bothered to name. That is not a haunting, that is infrastructure. But the house isn't the only thing repeating a pattern. Watch Lorraine's hands shake around an untouched teacup while Ed sits across from her. She tells him, quietly, that she can't keep doing this. He takes her hand anyway, not to comfort her, to recommit her. The artifact room behind them is full of objects from cases they never fully closed. Evidence the Warrens collect faster than they resolve. That night, the family barricades the front door with a dresser by candlelight. The 5 daughters huddle on one bed, April's face buried in Andrea's shoulder, watching a crack in the wallpaper widen by the second. Lorraine grips Ed's arm and says a word out loud for the first time. Possession. His jaw tightens. He picks up the phone and starts dialing Rome. What follows isn't urgency, it's bureaucracy. Ed and Lorraine sit in a sparse hallway outside a closed office door, waiting for permission to stop something that's already escalating inside a house 2 hours away. And in an old church ledger, in faded ink, a name: Bathsheba Sherman, accused, witchcraft. The same institution being asked to authorize an exorcism is the institution that authorized her death more than 100 years earlier. This is the moment the suppressed truth nearly surfaced and was buried by the narrative's own urgency. The Warrens need the church's permission to act. The film frames this as procedural suspense, a ticking clock on an office wall, a stack of unsigned papers nobody is in a hurry to sign. But ask the question the film never lets you finish. Why does the institution take so long to authorize stopping a cycle it helped create? A calendar on a desk, days crossed off in red ink, the date circled and underlined twice. While back at the farmhouse, the same antique clock freezes again at 3:07, dust settling on its glass face, as if even time itself is waiting for someone to finally sign the page. This is the same church, the same conspiracy of silence that convicted Bathsheba as a witch over a century earlier. Overlay the modern office against the 19th century tribunal, and you'll find the same insignia stamped on both documents, one approving an exorcism, one approving a hanging. The architects of this story placed that detail directly in front of you, and trusted the genre's pacing to make you forget to ask why it mattered. When the approval finally comes, Ed doesn't celebrate. He exhales, relieved, and drives through fog at night toward a house that is already shaking apart. By the time he reaches the front door, the shutters are slamming themselves open and closed, and Carolyn's eyes have already started to roll back. And here it is, the breaking point. Carolyn's possession is staged in the exact blocking as Bathsheba's hanging. Same silhouette, same composition, same cold light. Her body lifts off the floor, arms raised, suspended in a shape this house has produced before. Ed plants himself beneath her, cross raised, rain-soaked, arm trembling. Lorraine shouts her daughter's names into the chaos, not as comfort, but as a weapon, the only thing strong enough to interrupt a 108-year-old pattern mid-motion. This was never a new attack. It was the cycle completing itself, and this time, for the first time in 108 years, someone showed up before it finished. Imagine discovering that breaking a curse once doesn't end it. It only proves it was never inevitable to begin with, which means every time it did complete, someone, somewhere, chose not to interrupt it. Watch the hallway in that final moment, and you'll see it. Faint, translucent, generations of women who walk this same floor, and were never given the chance Carolyn just got. The old church ledger closes on its own page, dust settling over a name no one ever revisited until now. Watch the final shot carefully. The exact same warm, golden color the directors used to sell you innocence in the opening scenes, used again here to sell you resolution. The family on the porch, the cellar door, freshly locked, a bruise, fading but still faintly visible beneath Carolyn's sleeve as she waves goodbye to the camera. The light never changed. It was always lying, because the suppressed reality was never that a demon haunted this house. The house was never cursed. The house was simply honest about what already happens to women left alone in it. Somewhere in a church filing room, a hand stamps a case file resolved in red ink and slides it into a drawer beside dozens of others. Identical folders, different family names, the same pattern filed away and renamed every time it resurfaces. The exorcism didn't defeat evil. It interrupted a pattern that the institution, the family structure, and the silence around it had been sustaining for over a century, and called the interruption a victory. That is the deception at the center of this story. Not a demon, a mechanism, one that doesn't need the supernatural to keep running. It only needs everyone to keep agreeing not to look. Years later, another family pulls into the same driveway. Another child runs ahead toward the porch. Another dog refuses to cross the threshold. Nobody asks why. The most dangerous houses were never the ones with monsters in the walls. They were the ones where everyone agreed, generation after generation, not to ask why the violence only happened when no one else was watching. Was Bathsheba the curse? Or was Bathsheba simply the first woman this house ever let anyone find out about? If this truth disturbed you, good. Smash like and subscribe. The Pulse Cinema has more dark truths waiting.